Okay, let's dive right into this explainer by starting with a bit of a thought experiment. I want you to picture two children. They are the exact same age, growing up at the exact same time, but they are living in completely different circumstances. Consider child 1. This child is growing up in a highly loving family. They go to a well-funded, supportive school, and they live in a really safe neighborhood where they can play outside. Now, on the flip side, consider child 2. This child experiences daily family conflict. They attend a school that has extremely limited support and resources, and they have to navigate a genuinely unsafe environment every single day. So here's the big question. If we check back in on them in 10 years, will these two identical children have developed in the exact same way?
Well, the answer is probably not, right? And this brilliant, incredibly intuitive insight is the absolute core of Urie Bronfenbrenner's 1979 Ecological Systems Theory. To really grasp why this was such a massive game changer, you have to understand the context of the time. Before Bronfenbrenner published his famous book on this, a huge chunk of researchers were heavily, almost exclusively focused on things like genetics, innate intelligence, or internal personality traits to explain how we grow. But Bronfenbrenner essentially solved a major problem in psychology. He argued quite forcefully that you literally cannot understand a person's development without deeply analyzing the environments in which they actually live.
He famously compared human development to a growing plant. Think about it. Just like a healthy plant absolutely requires good soil, clean water, adequate sunlight, and proper care to survive, human beings need supportive, nurturing environments to truly thrive and reach their full potential. You could literally hold the best, most resilient seed in the world in your hand, but if you plant it in toxic soil, it simply is not going to grow properly. We are exactly the same.
So to understand exactly how this architecture of development works, we are going to progressively zoom out through the 5 interconnected environmental systems that surround every single one of us: the microsystem, the mesosystem, the exosystem, the macrosystem, and the chronosystem. Finally, we'll wrap up with why this theory matters so much today.
All right, let's start right at the center with layer 1, the microsystem, which is all about our daily interactions.
Simply put, the microsystem consists of the people and places we interact with on a direct, daily basis. This is your immediate world. It's the most intimate layer of your environment. We're talking about your family, sitting around the dinner table, your friends hanging out after class, your teachers at school, your neighbors, or even a sports coach or mentor that you see a few times a week. These are the direct, face-to-face relationships that immediately shape who you are.
To make this super concrete, let's look at a hypothetical student named Ollie. In a highly supportive microsystem, every single evening, Ollie's parents sit down, ask about his day, and help him with his homework. Over at school, his teachers consistently praise his efforts, and his friends actively motivate him to do his best. Because of these incredibly positive daily interactions, Ollie naturally builds a ton of confidence and performs well academically. But contrast that with an unsupportive microsystem. If Ollie's parents are constantly absent, if his teachers criticize him instead of helping him, and if his classmates exclude him, he is going to struggle immensely. Even if both versions of Ollie have the exact same natural genetic intelligence, their daily environments directly dictate their developmental success.
Now let's pull back just a little bit and move to layer 2, the mesosystem, which is really all about connecting the dots.
This is a really crucial distinction to make. The mesosystem isn't a new place. It isn't a new set of people. Rather, it is entirely about how the different parts of your existing microsystem connect and interact with each other. It's the invisible bridge between your different worlds. Basically, it's what happens when your home environment communicates with your school environment, or when your friend group interacts with your family.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why partnerships matter so much in development. Imagine Ali is really struggling in math class. In a strong mesosystem, his teacher notices this, calls his parents, and together they sit down and create a coordinated study plan. Ali's parents then supervise the homework at home, and the teacher provides the extra targeted support at school. Home and school are working totally in sync, and Ali improves. In a weak mesosystem, however, the parents never attend parent-teacher meetings, and the teachers never bother to reach out. Everyone just assumes someone else will fix the problem. Because there is a complete breakdown in cooperation between these two microsystems, Ali falls through the cracks, and his learning suffers.
Stepping back even further from our immediate daily lives, we encounter layer 3, the exosystem, which is characterized by indirect influences. Now, unlike the microsystem, where you are actively and directly involved, the exosystem affects you entirely indirectly. It consists of environments that you don't even participate in.
You might not ever even visit these places, but the events that happen there inevitably ripple out and impact your life anyway. It's like a stone being dropped in a pond. You aren't the stone, but you definitely feel the waves.
For example, let's bring this back to Ali. Ali obviously doesn't work at his parents' offices. He's not sitting in on their corporate board meetings. But if his mother gets a major promotion at work, her salary goes up, she might get better hours, and suddenly the financial stress at home just vanishes. The family can suddenly afford better educational resources, maybe even a tutor for Ali. Conversely, if his father unexpectedly loses his job, financial stress skyrockets. The parents become highly anxious, arguments at home start to increase, and Ali's concentration at school begins to decline drastically. He had absolutely zero direct involvement in that workplace, yet the events that unfolded there deeply influenced his psychological and educational development.
Zooming out even further to a massive societal level, we reach layer 4, the macro system, representing the big picture.
The macro system encompasses all the massive cultural forces, traditions, beliefs, and laws that shape how entire populations live, think, and grow. Think of it as the invisible blueprint of the society you were born into. It's the economic system, the political climate, and the broad cultural values that surround you every second of the day.
So the crucial takeaway here is that your development is heavily dictated by the overarching values of your society. For instance, in a culture that treats education as the absolute highest societal priority, parents will naturally push their children to study, and society will heavily fund local schools. Consider the impact of technology and globalization today. Living in a society that actively embraces digital learning, provides massive virtual libraries, and has widespread internet access gives you an enormous developmental advantage over someone growing up in a society without those structural resources. Even large-scale government policies, like passing a law for free primary education, belong right here in the macro system. You didn't write the law, but that structural advantage shapes the trajectory of literally millions of children's lives.
Finally, we must take all of these environments we just talked about and add the ultimate dimension, bringing us to layer 5, the chronosystem, the dimension of time.
Human development doesn't just happen in a static, frozen place. It continues throughout your entire life because both you and your surrounding environments are constantly, inevitably changing over time. The chronosystem tracks these shifts, whether they are personal, life-altering transitions like your family moving to a brand new city or your parents going through a divorce, or massive, era-defining historical events.
History is constantly shifting the developmental environment. Look at how changing family structures over the last few decades have completely altered how children are raised. Or look at technology. Just 20 years ago, students relied almost entirely on physical library books and heavy encyclopedias to learn. Then, look at the year 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic swept the globe, shutting down physical schools and forcing a massive, sudden pivot to online learning for millions of students. And today, we have the rapid explosion of smartphones and generative artificial intelligence tools. A student developing today is interacting with a fundamentally different world and solving problems in entirely different ways than a student developing 20 years ago. Time changes the environment, which in turn completely changes us.
Okay, now that we've successfully zoomed all the way out from the individual to the flow of time itself, let's discuss our final section, why this theory matters, and the immense paradigm shift it caused. The profound paradigm shift Bronfenbrenner caused across multiple academic fields is just fascinating. For decades, when a student struggled, or a person acted out, or a patient wasn't getting better, the default question was almost always, what is wrong with this person? Bronfenbrenner taught researchers, teachers, psychologists, social workers, and policymakers to immediately stop blaming the individual. He taught us to flip the script and ask, what is happening around this person? Are their microsystems supportive? Is there a breakdown in their mesosystem? What systemic macrosystem pressures are they facing? This is precisely why the theory has such massive applications today in everything from sociology and healthcare to educational research. It forces professionals to treat the whole environment, not just the isolated symptoms. By breaking down the environment into the micro, meso, exo, macro, and chronosystems, we finally understand a universal truth. Absolutely no one develops in a vacuum. Your family affects your development. Your schools influence your learning. Your friends shape your behavior. Your culture dictates your opportunities, and the historical era you are born into frames your entire life experience. One of the greatest strengths of this theory is how perfectly it explains why two similar people can develop completely differently based on their surroundings.
Now, some common criticisms do point out that because the theory is so vast and interconnected, it can be really difficult to test empirically in a lab. But despite that limitation, as a framework for understanding human growth, it remains absolutely vital.
So I want you to think about your own life for a second. Which of these 5 systems has had the most profound impact on the person you've become today? Are you primarily a product of your family's microsystem, or do you feel shaped more by the macrosystem and the specific technological era you were born into? If this explainer helped you understand the true architecture of human development, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below telling me exactly what academic theory we should explore next.